At 08:30 a.m., Russian armored units prepared a large-scale plan to capture several villages in Pokrovsk that hold important logistics routes. Russian tanks, Su-34 fighter jets, fiber-optic drones, Panzer S-1s and S-400s will play significant roles in the operation. Later in the video, we will see the Russians engage in close-range combat with mercenaries.
Get back! Retreat, lads, retreat! Come on, Bash, we can do it. Come on, bro. Here we go.
Before the Russian armored vehicles moved in, Russian reconnaissance drones identified the positions of Ukrainian drone operators in advance. Then, fiber-optic drone attacks were carried out one after another to destroy the shelters and buildings of Ukrainian drone operators.
Don't forget to leave your opinion about the video in the comments, subscribe, and like.
Russian armored vehicles suffered as little damage as possible. Therefore, the Russians destroyed the positions of Ukrainian drone operators beforehand. Some large multi-story buildings were occupied by Ukrainian drone operators. Therefore, Su-34 fighter jets were deployed to destroy these positions. Buildings in many sections of the front were destroyed or severely damaged. Panzer S-1s were deployed to many parts of the front line to protect Russian armored vehicles. Now, the Russian armored vehicles were ready to move. Russian armored vehicles moved simultaneously in large convoys. Attack drones from some undetected Ukrainian UAV control centers began attacking Russian armored units. But now, Russian armored vehicles are much more resistant to drone attacks. The upper hull is durable, but now the new generation of tanks is also quite resistant to anti-tank mines. You can see in the images how resistant the Russian tank is to mines. As Russian tanks approached villages, they began firing at close range. Follow us on Instagram for more videos. Tensions on the front line were quite high. Russian armored vehicles arrived at villages in Pokrovsk and dropped off special forces. The Russians are fighting both Ukrainian soldiers and mercenaries. Very intense and close-range fighting broke out between buildings in the city.
Move! Brother, move!
We got enemy in there! Is there enemy in there?
Possible.
The mercenaries thought there were Russian soldiers in a building, but there was no one inside. After checking the building, the mercenaries planned to use it as a temporary staging point for a while. However, a Russian reconnaissance UAV was monitoring the situation. Then, a Russian Su-34 fighter jet blew up the building by dropping FAB-1500 bombs on it.
Grenade in!
Throw another f***ing grenade!
Throw another grenade into these two.
After the FAB attack, other mercenaries were found in nearby areas and Russian FPV drones carried out their missions. A group of mercenaries appears to be having a hard time against Russian soldiers. On the other side of the front, a group of mercenaries with Humvees attempted to attack Russian trenches from close range. However, as seen in the footage, their operation ended in failure, and at least a few men did not survive the operation.
Let's go!
Musk, he's on the other side. Cover me, cover me. Muskie's hit! Man down!
Where?
Man down! Entrance to the trench!
Konstantinovka direction. The Russian operator destroyed ammunition belonging to Ukrainian forces in the open. Shortly after the munitions, another drone struck the shelter where Ukrainian soldiers were located. The soldiers realized their position had been exposed and fled in panic to quickly change positions. One soldier was found wandering between buildings, and the shelter where he was hiding was destroyed. Another Ukrainian soldier was spotted running between trees, and the chase did not last long. Another soldier was found hiding in the bushes. Another Ukrainian soldier was spotted running to hide in the ruins of buildings. The shelter he was hiding in was destroyed. And in the footage, all the soldiers in the first shelter that was destroyed were discovered one by one. The Russian drone operators did what they had to do. Pickup trucks and armored personnel carriers that came to evacuate the soldiers were destroyed in the attacks. A 155mm American M109 self-propelled howitzer belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces is under attack in the Dnipropetrovsk region by radio-controlled fiber-optic FPV UAVs and Lancet cruise munitions belonging to the Vostok Group. Destruction of a temporary deployment point belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces using a FAB-500 air bomb equipped with a guided missile system in the Reznikovka region. And the destruction of a temporary deployment point belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kucherska region of the Kharkiv region using an X-39 missile. The moment an FPV drone collided with a Russian military vehicle. Fortunately, all the soldiers managed to escape in time and no one was injured. Garan-2 UAVs struck launch and storage facilities belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces near the city of Kirovo. A Sever Group fiber-optic kamikaze drone operator caused fire damage to a shelter housing Ukrainian armed forces personnel in the border region of the Kharkiv region.
Господи, дрон. Боже.
A Russian drone buzzed over the head of a Ukrainian volunteer in Konstantinovka. It didn't hit him or the man at the tire repair shop. It just flew away like a spectator. But the volunteer had already panicked. He remembered Russian prayers and was about to write his will.
Господи, проигнорировал. Ждун. Ждун. Господи. Боже, пошел на засаду. И мужика не тронул. Финиш, блин.
Ukrainian forces are keeping their FPV drones on standby at the roadside for ambushes. Russian forces were the first to employ this tactic. As a result, the enemy lost a large number of soldiers and equipment. They quickly copied the tactic. However, they forgot one thing. Russian forces were the first to use this tactic. Drones capable of dropping munitions are destroying Ukrainian drones with bombs dropped from the air. Russian forces, supported by operators of attack aircraft belonging to the 1009th Regiment, are engaging in fierce clashes with the enemy for Volchansk in the Kharkiv region. The Novgorod Prince Vandal fiber optic FPV drone accurately strikes a Ukrainian armed forces supply point in the village of Udakhny, west of the city of Krasnoarmysk in Donetsk. In the final frames of the fiber optic, birds flight over enemy military territory, boxes bearing a distinct logo and the abbreviation WFP are visible. While driving at full speed, the Russian soldier calmly destroyed the enemy drone above their heads in seconds, without even taking the cigarette out of their mouths.
Ёбаный в рот, нихуя не работает эта рэпка. Ты попал по нему? Да.
In the Orakovsky direction, the destruction of 2 camouflaged Ukrainian armed forces tanks took place. 503. Guards motorized. Rifle regiment's ammunition appears to catch fire after an FPV drone strike. Drone pilots of the 42nd Guards Motorized Rifle Division appear to have incinerated an Armed Forces of Ukraine T-64BV on the outskirts of the village of Novodanilovka. FA-B-3000 airstrike on a dam near Popovka, Belgorod region, where the Ukrainian armed forces moved armored vehicles. Zaporizhzhia direction, Lobkovoy village. After active offensive actions and a series of activities in the airspace, the paratroopers of the 247th Regiment took control of this settlement. East of Pokrovsk, Krasnoarmysk. Tarasovka. The Ukrainian armed forces occupied the building and barricaded the holes in the wall. Russian drone operators are trying to penetrate the barricades and enter the building, but each time Ukrainian soldiers re-barricade the holes, preventing the drones from entering. As a result of the accurate strikes of the drones, large holes appeared in the building, and it was no longer possible to close them with barricades. Russian drones managed to get inside. Follow us on Instagram for more videos. In the same direction, a Russian soldier fired a kolobok at a building housing Ukrainian armed forces personnel. The Vostok fighter group struck an armored vehicle of the armed forces of Ukraine in the direction of South Donetsk. The armored vehicle stopped as a result of the impact, but as far as I can see from the video, the crew could not get out of the vehicle. Because the drones attacked one after another, they had no time to get out of the vehicle. As a result of the joint work of the 305th Artillery Brigade of the Vostok Group and the Far Eastern soldiers of the 57th Independent Guard Motorized Rifle Brigade, the UAV control center of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Sevchenko settlement in the South Donetsk direction was destroyed. Near Demidovka, near the border with Belgorod region, you can see a large number of destroyed Ukrainian armored vehicles, a large number of million-dollar equipment shattered under the fire of the Russian armed forces. The fighting in Belgorod continues intensively. At the same time, there are numerous guided missile attacks in the area. K-52 helicopters are actively involved in the fighting in support of Russian troops.